This parole hearing is now in session for Curtis Bell. You are currently serving a life sentence for criminal negligence that resulted in multiple deaths at a residential apartment complex. This board will determine whether you understand the consequences of your actions and whether releasing you would place the public at risk.
This hearing is being recorded in full, and every statement you make today will become part of your permanent record. We are not here to debate intent alone. We are here to examine judgment. You should answer carefully because the way you explain yourself matters as much as what you say.
I understand, and I want to thank both of you for letting me speak. I've had a lot of time to think about that building, those hallways, and the choices I made. I believe I've gained perspective that I didn't have back then.
You became eligible for parole after serving 20 years. In your request, you stated that you have changed and that you now understand the impact of your actions. Please explain in your own words why you believe you should be released.
I believe I've taken responsibility in the only way that truly matters, which is by changing how I think. I've learned that stress, noise, and constant alarm erode people over time in ways no one talks about. I genuinely believe that understanding those pressures makes me safer now than I was before.
Let's revisit the circumstances of your conviction. You were employed as a maintenance worker at the apartment complex where the fire occurred. Over a period of months, you disabled multiple smoke alarms throughout the building.
Yes, that's true, and I won't deny that I did it. What I want you to understand is that it wasn't impulsive or careless. Those alarms were going off so often that residents had stopped reacting with concern and started reacting with anger.
Smoke alarms are not designed for comfort. They exist to warn people when their lives are in danger. Why did you believe you had the authority to interfere with that system?
Because no one else was responding to the complaints, and the situation was escalating. People were exhausted, short-tempered, and anxious in their own homes. I believed that if people weren't constantly on edge, they would be better equipped to respond when something truly serious happened. You know?
Actually, I don't know. But I do know that you cut wiring to safety equipment in a residential building. That decision eliminated the only early warning system for dozens of people, many of whom you never met. Did you consider what would happen if there was a real fire?
I considered what would happen if people panicked. Panic causes stampedes, falls, confusion, and bad decisions. I believed that removing the trigger would just reduce the chance for chaos.
The trigger you removed was the sound that would have woken sleeping residents before the smoke reached them. Without it, they had no warning. Do you understand that distinction?
I understand it now. But at the time, the alarms had become background noise, something people complained about more than they respected. I trusted that people would notice other signs and react accordingly.
On the night of the fire, several residents were asleep behind closed doors. Without alarms, they were not alerted until conditions were already severe. That delay cost them their lives.
I know that now, and I carry that knowledge with me, all right? I didn't fully grasp how quickly a situation could turn irreversible. I believed people would wake naturally, and that belief was wrong.
5 people died because they never had the chance to wake up in time. That is not abstract harm, and it is not theoretical. That is the direct consequence of your decision.
I think about that every day, man. I also think about the fact that I never wanted anyone hurt. My actions came from concern, not cruelty.
Concern does not undo outcomes. Safety systems exist precisely because individual judgment fails under pressure. Why do you continue to describe this as a wellness decision?
Because I was thinking about long-term mental strain. Constant alarms condition people to ignore danger signals entirely. I believed I was improving the environment, even though I now understand the cost of that belief.
In your parole statement, you wrote that residents overreacted. Explain what you meant by that.
What I meant was that fear had become automatic.
Alarms would go off and people reacted emotionally without assessing the situation. I thought that pattern made everyone less safe, not more.
You're describing the victim's behavior as the problem, instead of the absence of warning. That suggests you are still distancing yourself from responsibility.
I don't see it as distancing. I see it as analyzing how people respond to stress. If we don't examine behavior honestly, tragedies repeat themselves, right?
Not right, but let's discuss your conduct while incarcerated. You have no violent infractions, but you were written up for removing the battery from a smoke detector in a prison workshop? Explain that incident.
The detector was chirping every few seconds because of a low battery. It was impossible to concentrate, and no one addressed it for hours. I thought removing the battery, temporarily, was the most practical solution.
You removed a safety device again because it bothered you. Do you understand why that deeply concerns this board?
I understand how it looks, but from my perspective, it was about preventing mistakes caused by distraction. Noise like that drives me nuts.
You also wrote that you now sleep with earplugs as evidence of personal growth. Explain how blocking sound demonstrates accountability.
Because I've learned to adapt myself instead of altering my surroundings. I don't try to control the environment anymore. I manage my response to it.
Mr. Bell, earplugs block danger as well as noise. You're describing the same behavior under a different justification.
Well, I see it as a personal choice now, not a choice that affects others. That distinction matters to me.
If released, would you work in maintenance again?
No, I wouldn't. That level of responsibility requires judgment that people don't appreciate. I don't think that role is appropriate for me anymore.
What would you do instead?
I would consult. I believe I have insight into how environments affect behavior and stress. I think that knowledge could still be useful out there.
Answer this clearly. Do you believe those residents would be alive today if the alarms had been functioning?
Yes, I believe they probably would be alive. That reality stays with me every day.
And yet, throughout this hearing, you continue to defend the reasoning that led to their deaths.
Because I'm trying to explain how I got there. Understanding the path doesn't mean approving of the destination. I'm trying to show growth, not denial, all right?
Parole requires certainty that the behavior will not repeat. What we hear instead is continued justification dressed as reflection. That is not reassurance, Mr. Bell.
For that reason, parole is denied. This board does not believe you fully understand the danger of substituting personal judgment for systems designed to protect life.
I understand your decision, even if I don't agree with it. I still believe calm environments matter, but I accept that you see this differently. I hope someday my growth will be recognized.
This hearing is concluded.